Today on Sports Central, we go over our next team prediction of this offseason, and it's going to be for the Missouri Tigers, a team that was 5-5 overall in the 2020 season. And this is definitely one of the biggest dark horses in the SEC going into the 2021 season. Why that is what we're going over here today. This Missouri team, of course, last year being 5-5, they were kind of in the background of the SEC for the majority of the season, but going into 2021, I could definitely see this team being quite the dark horse in the SEC. So that being said, we're going to go ahead and get started with Missouri's final prediction. We'll be looking at your season trends from 2020 to get things started. Obviously, this team, once again, was 2-3 in their first 5 games, 3-2 in their last 5. So overall, this team did improve record-wise over the course of the season. They had several really good wins, too. I mean, they beat LSU, of course, 45-41. That was a huge win on the road. LSU, of course, last season was not very good at all, but either way, a win in Baton Rouge is pretty great either way. So that was a good win there against LSU. Also beat Kentucky 20-10, beat South Carolina 17-10. Shut out Vanderbilt. That was a good win, 41-0. And obviously, I mean, I know Vanderbilt was terrible last season, but any game where you can shut a team out is very impressive. And Missouri shut out Vanderbilt there, 41-0. Very impressive. Also, they beat Arkansas 50-48. Don't sleep on Arkansas. That team was actually pretty good last season. So a 50-48 win is actually a pretty good win there for Missouri. So once again, this team was 5-5 overall. Not a terrible season for Missouri. This team definitely had talent last season, a little bit of inexperience, and a little bit of inconsistency as well. But this team definitely can improve on that going into next season. And looking at your returning production coming up next year, Connor Bazelak is definitely a quarterback to watch out for. I like him quite a bit. I mean, last season, of course, he was extremely underrated in my opinion. I mean, when you heard about SEC quarterbacks, no one really talked about him, but he actually had quite a great season. I mean, his touchdown-to-interception ratio was not very good, but he was very accurate last season, 67% completion rate, which is one of the best in the SEC for sure. I can almost guarantee you that's top 4, unless I'm wrong there. But Connor Bazelak, either way, put up 2,300 yards through 10 games, also had 7 touchdowns, once again 67% completion rate. So great season for him, and he's definitely got a ton of room to improve. Still a pretty young quarterback. This was just his redshirt freshman season there in 2020, so he'll be a redshirt sophomore going into next season. So he still has a couple more seasons with the Tigers, and I think that he's definitely a quarterback to watch out for next season. He's definitely got a chance to break out for sure. Larry Roundtree was your top running back. He will not be coming back next season. That's going to be a tough loss, probably the toughest loss on this team, as he put up just over 1,000 yards, 14 touchdowns as well. So that will be a tough loss there for sure at the running back position. Tyler Beatty, however, is coming back. He was your second running back last season, 575 total yards last season for this team, also 6 touchdowns. So he's going to get a ton of attention next season, I can guarantee you, so watch out for him. Otherwise, the receiving core looks pretty good as well. Kiki Chisholm is also coming back. He put up just over 450 yards last year. Damon Hazelton, your second wideout, is not coming back. Him last season, he played pretty well as well. He put up just over 400 yards. Toski Dove, he was your third wideout last season, and he's definitely got some good potential going into next year, as he also put up just over 300 yards. So receiving core looks good. Running back position also looks pretty good. I mean, once again, Larry Roundtree, that's going to be a tough loss there for sure. He was an impact player for this team, and losing him is definitely going to be an adjustment at first for this offense. But once this team gets used to Tyler Beatty taking over pretty much full time at that position, I wouldn't be surprised to see Missouri definitely play as one of the better offenses in the SEC for sure. But looking at this team defensively, lose 1 linebacker, 2 in the secondary, so there are 3 losses defensively for this team. That is not too concerning for me. I mean, especially on the defensive line, this team is looking pretty good. So Missouri, honestly, defensively should be very improved going into next season. 1 offensive lineman is also not going to be back for next season for this team. So returning production-wise, looks really good for Missouri. This team, I do like quite a bit going into next year. This team, though, has got some significant potential. I like, once again, Bazelak quite a bit going into next season. He's going to be a huge impact player for this team, and I think in general, Missouri having him under center is going to be a huge player for this team, and he's going to have a huge impact on how Missouri does next season. How much improvement could there be going into next season for Missouri? Once again, it's going to highly depend on how this team is offensively. Like, if the backfield just does not look very good overall, of course, Larry Roundtree, once again, will be a tough loss for this team. I do think this team, I mean, once again, it's going to heavily depend on the talent offensively. Defensively, this team looks good, but once again, it's going to heavily depend on this team offensively going into next season. SEC dark horse in 2021, that's a big question. I'm sure most fans are wondering. I think this team definitely is. I think Missouri, I mean, they're not going to be a national contender by any means, but this team has definitely got potential to upset a couple of major teams, and I think Missouri is not going to be a team to say go easy on. I think Missouri is definitely a team that teams are going to have to worry about, especially like teams like Georgia or Florida or the bigger teams like that in the SEC. Those teams will have to worry about Missouri going into next season. Looking at your schedule for next season, this is definitely an interesting schedule. Of course, you got your first conference game there on the road in Kentucky on the 11th. You got Central Michigan on the 4th to start off your season. Southeast Missouri on the 18th as well. Boston College, you got a road trip to there in Boston. ACC SEC matchup there should be a interesting one there. Of course, Boston College next season actually could be a pretty good team. Watch out for them. But otherwise, in October, you got Tennessee, North Texas, Texas A&M, and Vanderbilt. So you still got a non-conference game in the middle of your October. In November, you got Georgia on the road, South Carolina, Florida, and then Arkansas. So November, by far, is your toughest month for sure. Having to play Georgia and Florida, and Arkansas also could be a good team. So overall, pretty tough schedule for Missouri. At least you don't have to play Alabama, though. That's going to help you a ton. But Texas A&M is still going to be a pretty good team next season. That's one of your crossover games into the SEC West. But looking at your September here, Central Michigan is going to be a win. Kentucky, I'm going to give you an easy win there as well. I do think that could definitely be a closer matchup. But I'm gonna take it as an easy win for Missouri. I think they come to play in that matchup. Southeast Missouri, also an easy win. Not much to talk about there. Boston College, that is an interesting one. I like Dracovic quite a bit up there in Boston, and I think that team could be definitely a middle of the pack or an average team for sure, or a better than average team for sure in the ACC next season. So do not sleep on that matchup. Boston College will be pretty good next season, but I'd take Missouri over them just about any day as of right now. So that's going to be also a win, but it will be a closer one. So you're going to start off the season 4-0. Not a bad start at all for this Missouri team. Heading into your October, you got Tennessee, of course, at home. That should be an interesting one, but I think Tennessee does come to play, and they end up getting the win there. That's going to be one where I think many Missouri fans are going to be pretty surprised. I mean, Tennessee next season, they'll be a decent team. I don't expect, they're kind of a mess right now. I don't see them getting over 7 wins next season by any means, but I think Tennessee will be a sneaky team in that matchup, and they get the win against Missouri. North Texas, you're going to come back and get a good win there. Texas A&M is going to be close as well, but I'm going to have you actually getting the win against Texas A&M. I think that's one of the big wins that you get next season, is a huge upset over the Aggies of Texas A&M. Texas A&M next season is also going to be a national contender for sure, but I think Missouri plays very well in that matchup. You got them at home after a great North Texas game, so I think that game is going to be a tough one there for Texas A&M. Missouri gets the win. Vanderbilt, also an easy win with it being on the road. I'm not too concerned. Vanderbilt next season, I really don't expect much out of. So 7-1 is going to be your record through the month of October. That is not a bad position at all to be in heading into your November, where you got Georgia, of course, on the road. Georgia is going to be a tough team next season. That is definitely going to be a national contender there. And for them going into November, they've definitely got some good motivation there because, of course, Florida and Georgia always are the two teams at the top of the SEC West or the SEC East. And I expect that to be the same going into next season. Both teams are pretty outstanding still going into next year. So I think Georgia gets the win. It could be close, but I think with it being on the road in a tough environment, I'm going to give it to the Bulldogs. South Carolina is going to be an easy win. I don't expect much out of them at all. Florida, that's also one where I could see it being pretty close, but Florida is still going to be a good team next season. Emory Jones, I like them quite a bit. So I'm going to give the Gators the win. And Arkansas is also a game where I think it could go 50-50. I think Arkansas next season won't be quite as good next season as they were in 2020. In 2020, they actually were halfway decent, but they don't have Felipe Franks anymore. So Arkansas, I don't expect to be quite as good. But either way, going on the road after a couple of tough matchups, you had Georgia a few weeks back and then Florida the week before. I think that one kind of sneaks up on you and Arkansas gets the win. But either way, 8-4 is going to be your record prediction for next season. That is not a bad record at all for Missouri. Once again, this team was 5-5 last season. 8-4 definitely shows a lot of potential in this Missouri team, and I definitely think it's within reason to say this team should get 7-9 wins next season. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below on Missouri. I appreciate you guys all watching. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. I'll see you guys later.